Welcome to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, and it is Monday, November 11th. And that, of course, is Veterans Day. And when I say it's Veterans Day, let me assure you, I have total respect for veterans. And let me be clear about this, because there are a lot of people out here who just say, I love veterans. I want to say it this way. And like I said, I'm very specific about it. If you serve the United States government in the military, you should be recognized as somebody that's doing an important job for the country. I don't think you're a god. I don't think that you're more than what you are, a defender of democracy and the Constitution. And that's a good thing. That's enough in itself. That's a lot. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't ever do it. I wouldn't shoot a gun at anybody. I wouldn't fight with anybody. I was prepared to move to Canada in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Of course, we got it's not the end of the draft, but it was a lottery that was the end of the draft for me. My number was 250, and that was it. I worked with other people to help people to avoid the draft. And I certainly opposed the Vietnam War, not just because I was against war, which, I'm against war. I don't want anybody fighting, but sometimes you have to. And there are some people who are willing to fight. I can't fight. I can't. And that's the end of that. So I do respect people who do fight. Now, I have to say along the way that the military has done a lot of very bad things. For example, bringing in an inordinate number of blacks and Hispanics to fight in the Vietnam War, which they did in many surreptitious ways, which encourage people to join, not realizing what they might be getting into. And certainly not realizing that they were going to fight a war in Vietnam that was based on a complete lie and which should have never happened. Vietnam is a communist country today. I say that, but that's what they say. But not really. They have a stock market, and they have a lot of competition, capitalism. They do a lot of things that are very successful. It didn't destroy the world. People could do what they want within their own borders. Now, when Vladimir Putin thinks that he can go across the border in order to try to take over Europe, that's a problem. And, I don't know how we want to describe them. I don't know if we want to call Putin Hitler and Donald his useful idiot. That's one way. Another possibility is calling them Hitler 1 and Hitler 2. Certainly, Donald has told people, many, that he has great admiration for Adolf Hitler. It's just a fact. It's a fact that the man read Hitler speeches before he went to sleep. His wife has told everybody that. And he also explained that this administration of his would be a unified Reich come day one. Now, all that sort of got pushed into the back because I guess some people told him he'd better stop it. And usually he doesn't listen, but I guess sometimes he does. And Certainly, he's a liar, so there's no problem with that. He can lie, he can steal, he can cheat, and he can commit fraud. Fraud against banks, fraud against insurance companies. Yeah, all of that, we understand. He's been adjudicated to be a rapist. We know that, and we also know that he's got 34 felony counts that have put him under a conviction. He's convicted. He's a felon. So all those things are true, and he thinks he can get out of them. And not so easy. However, I do get a kick out of all the people who are talking about joining his administration so they can be like Rudy Giuliani and end up on the street hungry and desperate. Because Donald does not help people. Believe that. He's lucky to be able to help himself. He's got about $3 billion worth of stock, which he says he'll not sell, but he's a liar, so I don't know why anybody would think about that. And besides that, don't forget, if that stock drops to 10, 5, 0, which I expect, then the man owes $2 billion besides the stock that he's got. So he's got $3 billion and he owes $2 billion, which they say is rising rapidly. You know, 3 versus 2 leaves you with 1. You can lose that 1 instantly and be broke like Rudy Giuliani, who right now is begging for food. What did he think was going to happen? I mean, Donald won't even pay a piano tuner in Trump Tower. He's certainly not paying Giuliani anything. Nothing. And he's also threatening everybody in sight, which is hysterical, but also let me say this, to not only be expected, but in addition to being expected, these people have to realize that nobody feels sorry for them because they joined with Adolf Hitler. I mean, you join with Hitler, you know, you get Hitler. It's a sad situation, but not so bad for the country. I know, people like my brothers, they're all bent out of shape, and they said all along that Donald was going to win, and I was ridiculous, that there was no way that Kamala Harris could win, that she might be a nice lady, but that Donald had this thing wrapped up. Well, you know what? I just thought the American people had a brain. Apparently not. And interestingly enough, and this is, to me, very interesting, there are 2 groups that stuck with Donald all the way. One, black women, which I said all along, black women are not stupid. And they went all the way with Kamala Harris. And then, on top of that, Jews. Are they paying a price in Europe for that? I don't know. Maybe it's just as simple as, if you're looking for somebody to create a problem with, let's just get the Jews. That's always worked for really generations. But aside from all of that, the important thing to understand is that the Jews voted just the way they always do for Democrats. And black women voted in bigger numbers than ever for Democrats. And then a whole bunch of other people went south. And I say it's sad, and it is, because when you hear them say, he doesn't mean us. Wow. You talk about Hitler. He doesn't mean us. It's some other group. It's some other bunch of Latinos that are going to be thrown out of this country. Donald says 12 billion. I mean, 12 million, of course. 12 million. He's throwing them out. They could be American citizens. They go. If you're an American citizen married to a Latino, see you later. You're a child born in the United States, an American citizen, see you later. If you're a friend of these people, they're saying today that you could be removed. But see, there is a pushback. There are two things interesting. Number one, there's a pushback, and that could involve ACLU. It could involve lots of other organizations, people who will raise enormous amounts of money to protect the rights of these groups. And then on top of that, you know, you have federal judges. They're not going to roll over on this. There are lots of people who aren't afraid of Donald Trump. I mean, honestly, if he'll put online a place where you can apply to go to one of his camps, I'll send that application in immediately. Take me. I'm ready to go. And I know a whole bunch of people who would go too, probably millions. This is no joke, as Joe Biden would say. This is serious. And you know, Donald is a very sick man. And look, he's going to get himself into so much trouble. And I realize people say, well, he's a king now. The Supreme Court made him a king. Not exactly. But even if they did, look what happens. He's got all these people he's hiring. And they're not kings. And, you know, when they go to a court looking for protection because they're working with the president, they're going to find out that they don't have immunity. They don't have the same protection. They better have a bunch of millions to protect themselves. Lawyers, they're going to need it. They're going to end up just like all of Donald's other people. I know Donald's going to let them all out of jail. Okay. Good luck. He's certainly not going to pay for them. He wouldn't buy them a cup of coffee. Ask Rudy. Rudy can't get a plate of scrambled eggs from Donald. Nothing. He's begging for food today. I mean, I feel sorry for him, of course. But I also know that he brought this on himself, as are these other people who have connected with Trump from all different directions. And if they think that it's going to end better for them than it has for everybody else, they're dreaming. It won't end one bit differently. These people they're buying into Adolf Hitler, and they're going to end up like everybody who ever worked with Adolf Hitler or Donald Trump. It's the same story. Everybody that works with this guy ends up in well, they lose their law licenses. Some of them go to jail. And then they wait around for Donald to save them. I'll never forget the guy who got 20 years for all the things that he smashed up at the Capitol. And on the way out the door, going to jail, he raised his fist and said, "Go Trump." Yeah, go Trump. Trump, you go to the White House and I go to jail. I know they think Donald's going to get them out. Maybe some. But it's not what it's being cracked up as by all of these people who, number one, love Trump, and number two, think that they've got some kind of a special deal because they voted for Trump or they sent a donation to Trump. Whatever it is. They just need to give Rudy Giuliani a call, and they'll know exactly where this gets you. It gets you nothing. It gets you nowhere. It gets you a jail sentence while Donald collects whatever he's getting from Vladimir Putin as part of some sort of a blackmail bribery deal, whatever it is that they've got cooked up. There are people talking about that. That's not just me saying it. That's out here. And it's been here ever since Bob Mueller. I can tell you right now, there's a deal between Trump and Putin. And it's not a deal where, they just came up with something between the two of them and everybody's happy. This is a deal where Donald's being blackmailed. And we just don't know what it is. But apparently he's happy with it. It's getting him this far. And in essence, I've said this so many times, I just didn't think it would happen. But in essence, it gets Vladimir Putin ownership of the United States. So really, come January, Donald Trump is a useful idiot, and Vladimir Putin, instead of just being the richest man in the world, which people say he is, because he stole from his own country, but in addition to all of that, he owns the United States of America. And I got to tell you, that is an amazing prize when you think about what the Soviet Union went through. All those years, 70 years of fighting and threatening and danger. And here's where they've come to. They own us. And the first place we're going to find that to be true is in Ukraine. I mean, you're going to see that immediately. Remember? He's going to end that war in one day. So you don't have long to wait. He's going to get into office. And in one day, he's going to turn over Ukraine to the Russians. Now, the Russians might take a little less than 100% on the first day just to be smart about it, just to not show their hand. But if they take 20%, which is where it is right now, that's a perfect beginning for them. They got a few minutes. They don't have to get it all overnight. They've got a year. And really, they've got a year. Because if they don't get everything done in the first year, they're going to start to run up against our midterm elections. And then they're going to have to do some bigger things. Like, for example, cancel the election. Or simply set things up so that Republicans win 95% like they do in Russia. Or however they do this. They got a game. They got a plan. They know what they're doing, or they know what they think they're doing. Because as I've said in the last week, and I'm saying it tonight, and I'll say it every night, the United States is not going to roll over for Donald Trump. He got away with something serious, but it's not the end. I mean, Kamala put it in one way where she said, we're still fighting. It's not over. And I do believe that. I'm just a little more assertive than Kamala was in her speech, and some other people are as well. Because I'm willing to say some things here that I know people don't want to hear it, but I don't care, because guess what? I'm not running for anything. I'm really not. What's Donald going to do? Come in and shut everybody down he doesn't like? Hey, go for it. CBS and MSNBC, and he's going to go after all those before he goes after, some little guy in Chesterfield. But I will say this. He may want to go after everybody, and I'm applying anyway for it because I want to be part of that. I want to stand up against this guy in a serious way. Now, I think we all have that obligation to do that. I'll tell you what I don't like. And I heard this today, and I've mentioned this before a little bit, but I've never had a lot of love for Joy Reid. I never have. I mean, I love Ari Melber, Lawrence O'Donnell, Rachel, of course, Katie Fang, Ali Velshi. I mean, there are lots of people on there that I like. I really don't like Joy Reid. I never have. I've always felt that she was just a little off. Well, today, I think she's a lot off. Because why Joy Reid would be saying that when white women come looking for help after they just voted for Donald, that black women aren't going to be there for them. See, that's ridiculous talk. I mean, everybody needs to be out here for each other against this maniac. He's a dangerous guy, and this is not a game. This is not a game where we can say, well, fine, black women aren't going to help white women when it comes to it because they might have voted for Donald. If you voted for Donald, you did. If you voted for Hitler, you did. I'm not calling you a name. I'm not calling you a deplorable. None of that stuff. Really, I'm not. That's just not the way I am. But I do want to fight back, of course. And for me, I believe we have institutional strength that can be mobilized against some very bad people. I think it can be, and I think it will be. They want to start historic mass deportations. You got to stand up against that. First of all, the people they want to deport haven't committed crimes, haven't done anything. Nothing. They've been here, some of them since they were 1 year old. They know nothing outside the United States. And Donald wants to toss them So even if those people those people didn't vote, but their families voted, and a whole bunch of them voted for Trump. And what did the Latinos say? He doesn't mean us. He doesn't mean us. Wow. You know, there were Jews in Germany who said, he doesn't mean us. He's talking about Yugoslavian Jews. He's talking about Polish Jews, Czechoslovakian Jews, but not Germans. No, he won't do that to us. Well, we all know he would do it to anybody. He doesn't care. How many times have I said this one? You vote for Donald, you give him money, you support his candidacy, you make phone calls, whatever it is you do. And then you go to Donald and you say, Donald, I was one of your guys. He'll spit in your eye and laugh. What does he care? I can tell you right now, he hasn't said this yet, at least not that I know, but other people have that work for him. They have said, Project 2025, let's go. And when somebody has said, what? I thought Donald disavowed that thing. Ha! What are you going to do about it? We're doing Project 2025. That's exactly what they're doing. Was there ever a doubt that that was what they were doing? Well, of course there was no doubt. And now they want to do it. I said they want to do it. Can they do it? Well, they've got a better chance now than they had a week ago. That's for sure. But that doesn't mean they can, because there are people who will fight back. There are people who will push back. There are people who don't really want these mass deportations. They might want some people deported, sure. Wrongly as well, because anybody that's committed crimes belongs in jail. We don't have to argue about that. That's stupid. Is that an issue? No, it's not an issue. You commit a crime, you go to jail. You bust into the Capitol, smash windows, threaten to kill the vice president, try to find Nancy Pelosi to kill her, beat up her husband. You're going to jail. I mean, there's no other way around this. And people do go to jail. Now, Donald says he's going to stop it. He's going to get them all out of jail. But listen, those people aren't kings. There's only one king in the United States. He was crowned by the Supreme Court. And there's just one. That's it. Now, the problem is, go back in history. Every king doesn't survive. They get kings. So being a king isn't enough to save yourself. You can still end up worse than Rudy. Yeah, you definitely can. And how about the recess picks? That's a good one. He wants to appoint all of his cabinet during a recess period when he doesn't have to get the approval of the United States Senate. I find that very interesting. What's he afraid of? Just go through the process everybody else has. Oh, no, not Donald. He's a king. You know, if it's an official act, you can't get him, or at least that's the theory so far. That's the theory of the Supreme Court. And I have to tell you, we can push back on those people too. Ever hear of Franklin Roosevelt? He didn't get his way, but he did push back. And in the end, he got a lot of luck because all those people he was pushing back against dropped dead. So, not likely here. These people are young. But there are other ways to push back. There are also other levels of federal courts, and they aren't all in Donald's pocket. They aren't all part of Hitler's government. And see, I know there are people out here who go, well, don't call him Hitler. Come on. No, he was Hitler a week ago. So he's Hitler now. And he's out to do things like Hitler did. So, yeah, I call him out. I'm not running for anything. I'm not running. You can't withhold your vote from me. If the guy says, I adore Hitler, then you got to believe him. John Kelly is not lying, and everybody knows he's not lying. Donald has some fixation on the way Hitler acquired power. Okay. Just the way it works. But there are other things in the United States that also have a way of working. It's not the end. In 1972, I voted for George McGovern. George McGovern got slaughtered far more than what happened to Kamala this time. And within 2 years, Richard Nixon, who we said was a crook, was removed. Now, I know people say, don't you understand? You can't do that to Donald. First of all, he's been made a king. Secondly, people have already seen what he does. He's an adjudicated rapist. Women don't care. He has defrauded the state of New York and owes them $500 million. People don't care. Who knows what else he can do that people won't care about? But you know what? There's something, I don't know what it is. There's something that he will try that will be one step too far. Joe McCarthy did it. Donald Trump will do it. These people can't control themselves. They have an illness. He'll go far enough, and that'll be the end of it. And believe me, in the meantime, there are so many other levels of government that we need to deal with and where we can elect people who will deal with the king when the time comes. Frankly, I'm not afraid of the weirdos and freaks that he wants to appoint to his cabinet. If he can get it done in a recess, good luck. Right now, the Democrats aren't stupid, and they aren't just backing down on this. So we'll see how all that works out for Donald. And trust me, he has many more problems than that. And I'm not even just thinking about that stupid company of his. Now, I understand. If Elon Musk wants to give him a bunch of money, that's a way that he could do it. He could do it through that company. He could do that. Maybe he will do it. Maybe. But see, there are other problems too. For example, Can they hold the stock market up? Not likely. Today was another record day. S&P was up, Dow Jones was up. The number of stocks advancing over decline still have not gone beyond where they were 3 weeks ago at a top. I'm telling you, that is viciously problematic for these markets. This is how tops are made. And when this top is in place, Donald Trump will be Herbert Hoover. And I can assure you, with those crazy tariffs that he's going to slam on top of everybody, that exactly what happened in the 1930s is coming back. Now, it'd be different if Donald said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something like pump up the economy, put money in a money system. Well, he could do that, but he won't. He'd also be creating really inflationary situations, but he's got a problem. He's got a problem because he would like to get rid of Jay Powell, and Jay Powell said, I'm not going anywhere. He said, if Donald asks me to leave, I'm not going. Donald says he can get anybody to leave. It's just not the way it is. Donald believes lots of things that aren't true. I wonder if he thinks that Judge Merchan is playing games. Because, you know, Judge Merchan is going to put off this sentence for the felonies. He could put that thing off for 4 years and a day and then slam Donald straight into jail. You know, Donald says that he deserves a third term because we stole one from him. I hate to tell you, he is not getting a third term. He could try. It's not happening, but he'll try. He thinks it's owed him. I know everybody thinks we've had these problems before. We had Richard Nixon and we made it through, and we did. And I believe that we'll do the same thing here. We'll make it through. The difference is Richard Nixon thought that he could be a king. Didn't work. Donald thinks that he is a king, and he is, up to a point. Up to the point where the people of this country say, hey, Donald, you're killing us. See, if that happens, all bets are off on the kingdom. So Donald had better hope that he can push off the stock market decline for a minute. I wouldn't count on it. I think it's coming sooner rather than later. And I can tell you right now, there is no way that this country will put up with some kind of real economic problem. Because as it is, 75% of the people say that we are on the absolute wrong track right now. The country is terrible. Murderers are everywhere wanting to slit our throats. Remember, Donald said that if you go out to get a loaf of bread, immigrants will slit your throat. So they're fearful of that. I mean, there's no question Donald created enough fear in people who were just foolishly fearful. I don't know what they were afraid of. I mean, if they're afraid of inflation, okay, we're down to 2.5% again, But okay, you're afraid. I mean, there's just no accounting for what people could be afraid of. If you're afraid, you are. But no one needs to be afraid like Donald. Donald definitely needs to be afraid because there are people out here, and I mean numbers of people who just aren't going to put up with this thing. Remember also, there were 10 million less voters in this election. People just felt depressed and they stayed away. And then Donald ended up with about a 3 million vote advantage, at least as we stand right now. But we don't know what all those final votes in California will get to. I don't know. He might be 1 million ahead. I mean, it might be just what everybody said, a tie. Of course, he'll still be president. That's not the issue. But it might be a tie. And I'm just telling you, if there are 75 million people out here who voted against Donald Trump, trust me, they're going to throw a fit if this country really starts going down, which so far it has not. This country's, as they say, the envy of the world economically. That's saying a lot. The envy of the world. You turn this thing down for real, I promise you, Donald will make things 1,000 times worse. And I'm about to go to some business, but let me say that on the way in, I heard one guy, the first guy I've heard in probably, the whole 3 months since Joe gave up his run. He suggested that people look up in the dictionary, Smoot-Hawley. Been talking about that from the first minute that he mentioned these tariffs. Smoot-Hawley tariffs destroyed this place in 1932. Donald can do the same if he wants to play with it, and he says he's doing it. And his people say it, and I'll tell you, I believe it. Now, I also believe that you cannot have a better dinner than what you can get at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road in Chesterfield Valley. And of course, that's Wendy's. You can get wings. You can get smoked meat, cheeseburgers, hamburgers, patty melts with lots of onions. You can get one of those great French dips that Greg likes. Or you can get the terrific baby back ribs with onion rings that I love. Any way you cut it, don't feel sad about everything that's going on. Just go to Wendy's and have a great meal. You deserve it. You're going to need it. Rudy Giuliani could use it right now, I'll tell you that. Okay. The other place to go for Wendy's is in Defiance. Just right down the road, 2999 South Highway 94, Defiance, Missouri. Same great food, same great Wendy's. Ben and his wife, they did it again. Go to Wendy's. Now, if you go to 4506 Hampton, you can get wonderful jewelry, You can look at all the great cases filled with jewelry. You can buy and sell coins and jewelry with Al, the owner. They will design jewelry for you. And they'll also fix your watch. The whole story is simple. Al is a good guy. Nice person, honest, great to deal with. All this buying and selling that goes on down there, you'll enjoy it because you're going to be treated fairly and honestly. Go to 4506 Hampton, get your jewelry, and have your watch fixed. That's Jules on Hampton. Now, you see here I am on Monday with my yellow shirt and my yellow, blue, and I guess there's some blue. I think there are a couple of different colors of blue. And then it looks like maybe, I don't know, some gold or almost brown. I don't know. You know, I'm colorblind, but it's a nice tie. I'll tell you that. And everybody says, yes, it matches. And that's because the St. Louis Suit Company tells me what to buy and how to match it. And I do what I'm told. St. Louis Suit Company is in Clayton. They're on the corner of Central and Forsyth. A great bunch of people who will take care of your men's clothing needs. If you haven't bought an overcoat yet, you better get down there and get yourself an overcoat. And then remember, if you're getting married, this is the place to go to get your wedding attire also. It's the St. Louis Suit Company. They've been there 30 years, and they're not going away. That is the St. Louis Suit Company in Clayton. Now, I can also tell you that when it comes to Italian food, well, you can't beat Telena's. It's just impossible. Telena's Italian food is the best. And aside from everything that you can get there, because you can get all the regular Italian food that you can get anywhere, I'm just saying you're gonna get those spaghetti and meatballs. Yes, they've got calories. I'm sorry. They do. And you can also throw this great cheese on top that they have that makes these spaghetti and meatballs 1,000 times better. But they're great without it, but they're just great. I just love spaghetti and meatballs. I just can't eat it all the time because I don't want a balloon to look like Donald. But I'll just work on things my way. And in the meantime, you can check out Telena's right off of 141 and Olive next to the Deerbergs. 40 years. These guys aren't kidding. 40 years. Great food. Telena's. Okay, so there's more going on here. CNN reports this afternoon that Donald is using raw power to subvert the checks and balance systems that exist in the United States. Well, I guess he is. I just read those words. I don't know the details behind them. I guess if I were to listen tonight, I could probably get some details. I do believe that, Donald's going to fight to beat our system of checks and balances. I think that's the plan. In fact, you know what they say, he says that the third term, he thinks it can beat it that way too. But at any rate, you're going to hear lots of words. Lots of words. But I really hope that you'll be clear-eyed about this and not get carried away with pointing fingers at people, accusing Democrats of somehow subverting this process, somehow claiming that Joe Biden wrecked it all. Joe Biden didn't wreck anything. Joe Biden, according to the 158 scholars that measure the effectiveness of presidents, Joe Biden was number 14 out of 46. It's pretty impressive. Donald, on the other hand, was number 46. Gee, what a surprise. I guess they'll come back next time and say, okay, he was number 46 among presidents, but he was our best king that we ever had, which would probably be true by the definition because he'll be the only king. And I don't believe he'll be very long lasting there either. You know, one of the problems he's got is in the Middle East. And while Joe Biden was trying to negotiate an end to all the fighting in the Middle East, which so far, and probably he won't be able to, so far he failed to do that. But not surprising because a lot of people in the Middle East figured, let's just wait a minute and see if we get Donald, we might be able to run over him and get whatever we want. Now, I understand Donald thinks that he can isolate Iran and create, I don't know, some kind of a weave. Is that what he thinks he's doing here? I think all he's going to do is create more chaos over there. I know. There are people who trust him. They believe that whole story about him making deals and solving everybody's problems, even though we went through 4 years of Donald Trump and he didn't fix one thing. Now, he did get some tax money for billionaires. He did that. But there isn't one thing that Donald fixed in 4 years. I know Barack Obama said the absolute truth. I mean, you can find the data on this anywhere you want. Barack Obama came in with a 75-month expansion, turned it over to Trump, and Trump immediately wrecked it. Immediately. But people said, well, the stock market's going up. Okay. Well, guess what? The stock market went up under Joe Biden to new all-time highs, far beyond what Donald had accompanying him during his presidency. Far beyond it. But instead of saying, well, Donald did a great job and Joe Biden did a great job too. Oh, no. Joe Biden destroyed the United States, wiped us out, while Donald was completely successful. And like I say, that whole bunch of nonsense, it only goes so far. I understand he tells lies. People believe lies. I get it. A lot of us get it. And you know, in the process, Donald not only won the presidency, but he got, well, just look at that red map. He got so many states. Yeah, he did. Even Iowa. Poor Seltzer, the pollster for Iowa, who never made a mistake. Never did. until this time because she made a mistake. She said +3 for Kamala. No, -6 for Kamala. And the rest of the country fell into line in exactly the same way. This wasn't Hillary. It really wasn't. Hillary did some damage to herself along the way, although, I love Hillary. Hillary's a very smart person, a very accomplished political person, and just not enough to beat the misogyny that dominates this country. And neither was Kamala. And Kamala didn't make the mistakes that Hillary made, but she still suffered the same misogynistic collapse, which only left 50-50 anyway. Anyway you cut it. It's been 50-50 in 2016, 50-50 in 2020, and now 50-50 in 2024. But 50-50 isn't enough to ride the wave if things around you begin to unravel. I happen to believe that one of the unravelings will come in the terms of a failing stock market that Donald will not be able to handle. I understand he'll say, Kamala did it. Joe Biden did it. Bill Clinton did it. Barack Obama did it. Anybody did it. It'll always be somebody because he's a victim. It's never him. But it's going to come on his watch. And it's not going to be pretty. And Donald will have a story for everything. But I'm telling you, there's a point at which people will not put up with the story. We're not there. Right now, everybody's pretty enthusiastic. They got what they wanted on the right. They got Donald Trump. They got Adolf Hitler. They got a lot of dangerous economic nonsense. And since it's not hurting them right now, they're not going to respond to anything. There's nothing you can tell anybody because right now, Donald won. But I promise you that you are going to see problems that man cannot handle. Just go back and listen to the tapes of COVID. Listen to Donald standing in front of cameras talking about injecting people with bleach by giving them a cleansing. This man's crazy. And you'll hear crazy things that you will not believe. And you'll wish you didn't have to believe it, but you will believe it because you will have heard it. He's coming with it, and I guarantee you, he's going to pay a price for it. King or not, he's going to pay a price. Because there are people in this country who don't want to pay the price. They thought, for whatever reason, that Joe Biden was destroying their lives. Some kind of problem having to do with people who are transgender and might play in a game or something. I mean, all these crazy ideas, things that they fear, we're going to give them something to fear, unfortunately, in terms of the capitalist system that's going to deliver. Unfortunately. Now, I'm going to deliver you some Wendy's, some Jules on Hampton, the St. Louis Suit Company, and Telena's. I'm going to deliver it all, and I'm going to see you tomorrow. And by the way, Trumpers in the studio tomorrow. Get ready. I'm Mark Kaysen. This is Showdown. Greg Carell. Good night.